So today we're going to use the distance formula to find the distance between 2 points. You've definitely done this before many times. And we're going to use the midpoint formula. So they're both very easy. Just plug it into the formula and chug. If you pay attention, we can probably be done in 10 minutes with the notes. And then you can practice for our quiz tomorrow. So to find the distance, you're going to subtract the x values, subtract the y values, you square them, add them together, and put them all under a square root. So, for example here, we'll start by subtracting the x values first. So we'll have our big old square root. We'll do 3 minus a negative 1. Square that. And then we'll subtract our y values. 4 minus 2. And square that. The double negative there will turn into 3 plus 1, right? So that'll be 4 squared. And then, yeah. It doesn't matter because you're squaring it. You can do it in whatever order you want. But I actually did mean to do that because I wanted to remind you about something. So we'll do it that way. You'll get the same answer either way. It doesn't matter. But I did want to remind you about something, so we'll change it back. So 2 minus 4 is going to be a negative 2. So here's one thing you need to be careful of, okay? What is negative 2 squared? What should that be? Don't use a calculator. What should negative 2 squared be? Negative 2 times negative 2 should be what? Positive 4. Should it be negative 4 or positive 4? Positive 4. If you type this into your calculator wrong, Garrett, if you type it into your calculator wrong, you're going to get negative 4, right? If you don't put the parentheses. So be smarter than the calculator. You square a negative number and it should be positive, okay? So this will be square root of 16 plus 4. And so it'll be square root of 20. So you're just plugging into the formula and doing the math. Any questions about how we got to the square root of 20? So that's the distance between those 2 points. Okay? Now, they did say to express the answer in simplified radical form. So let's refresh on how we simplify radical, because that's the hardest thing we're going to do today. It's just remember how to simplify radical. So if we're going to simplify the square root of 20, we have to look for certain numbers that divide 20. What kind of numbers do we look for? Yeah, the biggest perfect squares. So what is our list of perfect squares? What's the first perfect square? 4, 9, 16, 25, right? 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 4 is 16. So you want to find one of those perfect squares that divides 20. This one's not bad. Which one of those numbers divides 20? 4. 4 times what is 20? 5. So we break it up into the square root of 4 times the square root of 5. Garrett, move over to that table. You're talking too much. Go. Yes, you are. And you're on your phone. 10 minutes. I'm asking for 10 minutes. Okay, what's the square root of 4? 2. Can we do the square root of 5? Is that going to be a nice number? No, so then we leave it. So that is your answer in simplified radical form. Okay, so I want you to set up the next one. Just set it up. Do the first step. Plug in the values into your distance formula. So you should first subtract the x values. So 5 minus 1 Then subtract the y values. So 6 minus, or I'll do it in the same order. Doesn't really matter, but 2 minus 6. 5 minus 1 will give you 4. So you'll have 4 squared. 2 minus 6 will be negative 4. So then you should have 16 plus 16 is equal to the square root of 32. Yeah, if you used 4 as that does divide 32, but it's not the biggest one, right? So we want to go bigger than 4. So 16 is the biggest one. If you do 32 divided by 16, you get 2, right? So 16 times 2 is 32. So we break this up into square root of 16 times square root of 2, because 16 is the biggest perfect square that divides 32. And then what does the square root of 16 become? 4. 4. Yeah, you were dividing by 2 instead of square rooting. That's all right. And then we can't do the square root of 2, so it stays. And that is our simplified answer. All right, so for part C, your final answer should have been 2 radical 2. 2 radical 2. So I'm going to go over this real quick, see if you did not get 2 radical 2, what might have gone wrong. So first we'll subtract the x values. So that'll be negative 3 plus 1, because it'll be minus a negative 1. And then negative 2 plus 4, because it'll be minus a negative 4. And so that will be negative 2 squared plus 2 squared, all under the radical. And so then you should have 4 plus 4, or the square root of 8. So if you got the square root of 8, then you did this correctly. And so maybe it's just your simplification. So we need a perfect square that divides 8. Well, that's pretty easy. 4 is the only perfect square that divides 8. So 4 times 2 is 8. And then you'll get 2 radical 2, because the square root of 4 is 2. Any questions about part C? Any questions at all? Okay, last example for today, finding the midpoint. So this is the distance between 2 points, and now we want to figure out what's the point in the middle. This is even easier. All you do is add the x values together and divide by 2. That gives you the x coordinate of the point. Add the y values together, divide by 2, and that gives you the y value of the point. So here, for this one, we will add negative 4 and 2 together. Those are the x values. And divide by 2. And then we'll add negative 2 and 5 together. And divide by 2, and those are your y values. Always start with your math on the top first. So negative 4 plus 2 will be negative 2 divided by 2. Negative 2 plus 5 will be 3 divided by 2. And then negative 2 divided by 2 gives you negative 1. 3 divided by 2 is a decimal. You can write it as 1.5. That's fine. Or you can just leave it as 3/2. So that is the point that is in the middle of these two. That's the x coordinate and the y coordinate. That's in the middle of those 2 points. All right, one more example here. This says the diameter of a circle. What the heck is the diameter of a circle? It's been a while since we've done geometry. What's the diameter of a circle? Yeah, all the way across, right? The diameter. I mean, we do use that word in real life sometimes, right? Measure the diameter of things. All the way across. And these points are connecting those. So the one point on one end is 2, negative 3, and the point on the other end is 6, 4. and they ask us to find the coordinates of the center. So what is it asking me to find? If it's asking me to find the coordinates of the center? The midpoint, right? So use your midpoint formula and plug in those values and see what you get. So you should be doing 2 plus 6 divided by 2, and negative 3 plus 4 divided by 2. So you'll get 8 divided by 2, and 1 divided by 2, and 8 divided by 2 is 4, and you can write 1/2 as 0.5 or as 1/2. And this is the middle of the circle. So this is the coordinates of this point in the middle, because it's the midpoint of that segment.